Hey guys, it's Cam here. Welcome back to the build room. Today is Sunday. It's about 11 a.m. and this thing, due for now, our 77 Mustang back Celica, is supposed to go for rego inspection at 7:30 a.m. Tuesday morning. So I have a full day and maybe a night after work tomorrow to get this bad boy finished up and road legal. So stick around and check it out. All right, so picking up where we left off in the last episode, which finished up yesterday, we managed to get the two tires on, but we needed double washers because the bolt lugs were too long. So I'm gonna try and get shorter lugs or more washers today. And then we have a giant list, and everything marked in red here are things that I'm pretty sure it's gonna need to have done before we go over the pits. A couple of them are just checks to make sure that things work. Hopefully there's no risk there. And then some of these are simple and then some of them are hard. Like we need a passenger side door. The door over there was the one that was rusty. If we have a look at it, this was rusted out in the top and it's got rust in the bottom, but it has no internals at the moment. So it can't even lock and it doesn't have a window or anything or a door handle. It's not gonna pass. So I was gonna move the internals from the old green door into it, but I'm a bit sketchy on that now. And I have another alternative, which I'll show you in a second. The big things are also the tie rod ends on the outer arms. They're done on both sides, so I need to go and replace those. We've got to set up the heater core and trap. I did have someone leave a message saying you don't need a heater core over the for a rego inspection. I don't know if that's a WA person or not, but certainly when I've taken cars over in the past, they have checked the heater after the car's been driving to make sure that it was working. Maybe it's not needed anymore, I don't know, but I want to get it working just in case. And then there's a bunch of little stuff like having radiator shrouds, vat canisters, new wiper blades and things like that. And then obviously also, we need to put the interior back together. Yeah, it ain't going over the pits like this. Also, none of the dash lights or anything work. I'm hoping that's just a fuse or something simple, but I may have to delve into that rat's nest. And I'm pretty sure that rat's nest won't pass either. So I might have to put some sort of plate on that and also get the demister switch in there. So yeah, we have got a lot of work and we have got very little time to do it in. So I'm gonna start with the tie rod ends and then I should be able to take this thing for a drive and make sure the braking system and the alignment is still good. If we get to that point, then we can start on the heater core and the door, and that will probably be all of the hard things out of the way at that point, and then it's just buttoning other things up. So yeah, we're gonna try and cut through as much of this today as we can, and then any of the small stuff I can probably button up tomorrow night after work, and then as I said, off to get inspected at 7:30 on Tuesday morning. So yeah, keep your fingers crossed for me on this one, and let's get into it. All right, so we may have just had the fastest fail in internet history. So here's the deal. You can see that the car is now on the ground and on its wheels. Some things have happened. So the first thing that I needed to do when I was cleaning this up to do the tire rod ends was really just get in and degrease the engine bay, degrease everything underneath because I didn't do that in the last episode. So I got it all degreased and that was all good. And then I threw the wheels on it and I backed it out of the driveway and I thought, you know what, while I've got the wheels on it, I might just take it for a small run just to see how it's doing. And it wasn't running that great, to be honest. So I haven't driven this car really at all because it's unlicensed, can't take it on the road, all that sort of thing. So I haven't really been able to see whether it accelerates cleanly and stuff like that. And when I did take it for the very small run that I did, basically, it wasn't revving as cleanly as I think it should, and I think that it was also really rich down low. So I remembered that when I was rebuilding this carby on the Violet Crumbles episode, which you can go back and have a look at, after I put it all together, I had this lingering question in my head around the primary and secondary jets. So basically, I had a look at the carb. So, you know, engine bay is nice and clean now, which is good. And I decided to change the jets around on the carb. So if we have a look at that, basically, these two screws here, or bolts there, you unbolt and that gets you into the float bowl where all the fuel's kept in the carb, and you can access the jets behind it. And when I put this back together, I didn't pay really any attention to whether I'd put those jets in the right place, and they're actually different sizes. You should have the larger jet in place for the secondary. So I didn't record any of this because I didn't think this was gonna make for really interesting content, but you know, that's the way it happens. And I took those bolts out, drained the float bowls, got the jets out, but I couldn't get them out through the holes to swap them over. And that can be a little bit difficult because the float actually gets in the way and stuff like that. So I ended up having to take the top off the carb. And with the top off the carb, you can access everything in there quite well. The problem was with the accelerator pump here. So the accelerator pump, we'll jump on the other side again. So if you see, I will actuate the throttle here and you'll see this pump move up and down. So see like that, just very small motion, but every time you put your foot down, it fires off the accelerator pump. So basically that is pumping fuel directly into the carb so that when you put your foot down, and it takes a little bit for it to draw a vacuum through and pull fuel, it puts some supplementary fuel in so the car doesn't bog down and want to stall. It's really important, and when it messes up, it's a big problem. And what happened was, when I pulled this off, I didn't realize that the accelerator pump that I put in this has a leather boot. And actually, I have some visual aids. Give me a sec. All right, so this is the old carb off this engine. So this is where the accelerator pump goes, and this is what it looks like. Now, the one that's in the carb at the moment is actually brass here, and then this seal here, which is what creates the pressure in the bore. So it just sits inside there. And it's spring loaded. You can see there's a spring in the bottom there, and basically it gets pushed down with pressure from the throttle, and if it's creating a proper seal, it will then squirt fuel in through there. Now on the leather ones of these, you actually have to be really careful, because if this seal gets out of shape or deformed in any way, it won't make a proper seal, or at worst it can jam up, and that's what happened for me. So I put the carb back together, put the top back on, and it wouldn't screw down properly because this was jammed in that bore. And what had happened is this leather had softened up really quite a lot, and it had either when I was taking it out or when I put it back in, it had been deformed to the point where it was flipping back on itself and just jamming up as it went down the bore. And that's really, really hard. And you'll notice when you get these in a kit, they've actually got a cardboard sleeve, and that's to hold the leather in place so that when you go to assemble these for the first time, you pull the cardboard sleeve off, you dip it in oil to lubricate it, you throw it in, you put the thing together, and then you're done and you never touch it again. But yeah, so mine crinkled and I just couldn't get that out. And I wasted basically the entire day trying to fix this. I went down to the storage unit, I got this carby, I tried to use this carb, I tried to use this pump out of this carb, a whole bunch of other things. I tried to search online for someone that might have a reasonable accelerator pump, but no joy on any of those fronts. I mean, the good news is that in the end I did solve it. And what I actually did was, I remembered that when I was trying to fix my interior on my M3, one of the tricks that I learned about leather is if you heat it up, it tends to deform back to its original state. So I basically got the heat gun out and I heated this to within an inch of its life, and it just shrunk back enough so that now I could get it back in the bore and the thing fired up, and it actually runs really well. And with the jets changed around, it runs properly and smoothly as it should. I mean, it doesn't have any power, it is a tractor motor, but at least it runs smoothly, and it would be considered safe when I take it to the pits. There's no way it would have passed the pits before, because without an accelerator pump, if you were to try and move out into traffic to cross the road, the likelihood is high that you would stall the car, get stranded in the middle of the road and get T-boned. So it was never ever gonna pass. And that kind of brings us to where we are now. And it is now Monday afternoon. So wasted the entire of Sunday trying to get this thing fixed. But once it was fixed, it was so late in the day that I really didn't have time to do anything else. And I also packed up the car and didn't really think about it, but left the keys in the ignition with it in the on position, and it killed the battery. So the car is supposed to go to the pits tomorrow morning. It's never gonna happen. So I've had to call the inspection center and cancel my appointment tomorrow. The next appointment they have is in 2 weeks. So there's no way I can get this ready, down to an inspection center, tested, approved, and then go to the DPI to get the licensing information and get this on the road for Toyoters in the Park. Now, I don't want to give up completely. I still want to get this thing to Toyoters in the Park. I have organized a trailer and a tow car for Sunday, so we can still get this bad boy down there. It's just not going to be driving all the way down there under its own steam. I also am now stuck in the situation where I got nothing done on Sunday, and I really only have a few hours after work each day to work on this thing in order to get it over the line. So I'm gonna have to pull back on some of the stuff we do, but by the same token, I'm gonna focus on more of the visual stuff rather than the mechanicals. There's a couple of things that I would like to look at if I do get time from the mechanical side of things, but I'm not gonna start on the tie rod ends or anything like that, because it really just doesn't make any difference. And while these things are cracked, they still function 100% fine. They just wouldn't pass inspection. So I'm leaving the start of this episode as it is, and I'm obviously recording this bit now because I think it's important to show you guys when things go awry. But that means for the rest of the episode, we're gonna pivot. And so what I'm gonna try and do is, firstly, we killed the battery. I need a reliable battery, so I'm gonna upgrade. 17-year-old me would have absolutely lost his shit with the fact that I bought the recommended battery for this thing. Never buy the correct size battery for a first gen Celica. They're not big enough. They don't last in my opinion, and they don't crank anything. And then if you put a stereo or anything else in this thing, you don't have enough capacity for the overhead. People are always doing alternator upgrades to like the EA Falcon alternator, which we'll probably do on this one. And I would recommend get the biggest battery you can fit in that spot, which is what I've done. So we're gonna replace the battery. We are gonna strip the front of the car down. So I've got to get the bonnet off, all of the front end, the bumper, so that I can paint some of these things that need to be looking a little bit better for the show. I've also got new bonnet hinges and a bonnet stay that will probably need to be painted. I need to see what they're coated in. And I've got to paint the rear vents for the C-pillars. So yeah, we'll get the painting stuff out of the way. The bonnet, I need to strip all the edges, as I also need to strip the inside edges of these areas. I'm gonna make sure all the lighting works, just because that's easy to do while this stuff's apart. I've got some news about the guards and the doors. I'll show you that in a sec. And then we've still got to get the interior in, which I'd like to do for this episode as well. So there is a lot to do here. Let's get the front area of the car started, and then we'll regroup to talk about the doors in a bit. All right, so while we've got this apart, I might as well try and fix this snapped off bolt. So let's try the old nut trick. Different here. Success! Cold, so let's see if the accelerator pumps are working and we actually get some love here. Beautiful. All right, so that's all we need to strip off it for now. Let's get it out of the garage and we'll have a look at what we're up to next. All right, so we've got the bonnet and the hatch up on stands. The reason I've got these out is the bonnet needs to have all of the edges stripped down so you can't see any of the green when it goes back on the car, and also that front lip is not clean either. The hatch, similar thing, got to strip some of the green. I might actually just paint the back of this, we'll see if I've got time. But I've also got to remove this panel, which isn't in bad shape, which is good, and get under it so I can take the lock out, because the lock has a bunch of green paint around it, and if I try and get that off without taking that lock out, I'm probably going to ruin the chrome on the lock. So yeah, I'll also brush out this rust and stuff while I'm at it and treat it just for the interim. But neither of those should take too long. The guards, so these are the two guards I've got. Since the last episode, however, I have also stripped down the guard that was on the right-hand side of the car originally. So this was the one that was two-tone, I think it was black up top and grey at the bottom, or maybe the other way around. And this came up much better than I expected. So there was a very, very thick coat of spray putty all over this entire thing, and I thought that there was a high likelihood that that would be covering a bunch of dents and things like that. But this thing is really a 9 out of 10 as far as I'm concerned. There is a little bit of a ding at the front here that someone's had a shot at panel beating out. Not great, and similarly a little ding here, but those are really minor. You can see some of this area that sits behind the bumper, and this gets hidden, is not great either, but overall that's not a big deal. Down the bottom, there's a little bit of rust where they all rust out, and that is because these things are double skinned to keep the structure at the bottom there. So water gets trapped and leaves and dirt get trapped behind there, and it rusts it out. So the back of this is, again, probably I would rate it a 9 out of 10 in terms of rust. This entire panel is intact. So what I'm going to be able to do is just cut a square out of here that exposes that back panel and replace it with new sheet metal. But before I weld it in, I'll actually treat that reinforcing structure as well so that we don't have to worry about rust coming through in the future. Also got to fill up this, which is just a hole for mounting the trim that goes down the sill panels normally. So yeah, that is a massive win as far as I'm concerned. And while we're on the subject of massive wins, we also have these. So in the last episode, obviously I ran into the frustration of the state of the doors that were on Doofa. And I just got to say thanks to everyone. So a whole bunch of people emailed me, DM'd me on Instagram, reached out over Facebook messaging, people sending me ads for cars that were being wrecked that had doors on them that looked okay, people that knew a guy that might have some doors and things like that. Everyone was really, really helpful. So thanks very much. And a guy reached out saying that he had a couple of doors that he'd put aside for a build and wasn't probably going to use, and that I was welcome to come over and grab them. So these are it. I want to be upfront. I have no idea whether these are actually going to be good or not. I've done my best to look inside them and I can't see any obvious damage, but you can see down on this door and you can see the rust behind the quarter. Hello. But around that rust, you can see the thickness of the body filler on this, and that's usually an indicator that this has had a very quick respray where someone's covered the whole car in bog and sanded it back till it's round and then painted it. Or there's been a couple of hits on these doors and it's needed that thickness of bog to even out the waviness. So I'm not going to show that process in detail because we've done it a couple of episodes ago. Have a look at the previous one if you want to see it, but we'll throw a few quick clips in here, and then hopefully when we come back, these won't look too terrible. All right, so that's about 3 or 4 hours of my life that I'm never going to get back, and mixed results. So this is the door with the rust in it. It is the driver's door, and it's probably the better of the two. It has really, it's quite decent most of the way through. It does have this scratch here at the front right of the door, and it's had previous repairs. So there's been a rust repair on this corner. There's been a rust repair on this corner, which is then rusted back through. So obviously probably didn't repair that one too well. And on the top side, it's had the standard repair all the way along. But you know, it does look like they've welded in another piece of metal from another door. So it's not the worst repair in the world, but it was obviously a rushed one. They obviously haven't bothered to try too hard to get these pieces of metal at the same level when they've welded them in. So you get this really hacky kind of a look to it, and it does require some filler. And they've also put a fair amount of heat in it when they've been doing it as well, because they've just warped this area near the door handle and stuff like that. So yeah, it's not a throwaway unit, but it's not a home run either. This door, on the other hand, which I thought was going to be the better of the two, is really, really not that great. So you can see there's a pretty significant repair, and that is all the way up through this door. So it's low all through here, all through there. It has been hammer and dollied a fair amount. There is a rust repair on this corner. There is a rust repair on this corner. There is another big dent all the way up through here. So basically all the way down through the door like that. So yeah, I don't know what's happened to get it like this, but it's not exactly that appealing to throw this on the car. The good thing about it though, turn it around, it does have a pretty decent top edge. There is one small rust repair here. So yeah, all through here looks like fairly reasonable sheet metal. It's not straight because of this hit, but at least it is structurally all there. So yeah, to be honest, I'm not sure either of these are worth putting on the car at this stage. I think before this goes for rego, I'm gonna have to do some serious work to get some doors that are reasonable. The thing that's frustrating me about that is I actually have some, what I hope are pretty cool graphics coming for this thing, for Totas in the Park, and if I have to swap the doors out later, I've got to get those reprinted and all that sort of thing. So look, it is what it is. I think for now, I'm going to put these aside. I'm going to grab the door that's currently on the car, and I'm going to swap the internals over from the old door. At least that way I'll have a door that has a window in it and hopefully closes, latches and locks and all that good stuff that we expect modern cars to do. And I'll have to deal with the doors later. We're just out of time for this. So yeah, we'll get the doors on the stands. We'll do a direct swap. These will get relegated to the back of the garage for now. And while I'm doing that, I'll tidy up these things so they can go back on the car as well. right, so that was possibly the longest montage in the history of the build room. Went further than I thought on a couple of things, but there's some reasons why. So the bonnet, you would have seen me taking as much of the dent out as I could at the top with the dent puller. It worked, you know, quite well over here, pretty well here. This, not so great. But to be honest, I wasn't expecting that much from that spot. I could probably get it better if I was willing to spend a lot of time on it, but we just don't have it at the moment. Also painted the center section black, and I had to fill in and panel beat the holes that were in there before. There is method to the madness. There will be a graphic going right in the center there, so need to have that spot nice and clean without any lumps, bumps, and so on and so forth. The hatch, you saw we ended up pulling it all apart, cleaning the paint out from under the lock, painting the back of it black and putting it all back together, so happy with that. Also ground the paint off the edges so that it doesn't look green around the rim. We will have to do something with this seal before the event, but at this point I'm at the stage where I'm just gonna mask it up and paint it black to get rid of the green paint and maybe put some Sikaflex to fill up the gaps. But you know, it doesn't have to look good, it just doesn't have to look horrendous like it does at the moment. The doors, look, the doors, obviously I repaired this section here. I used the dent puller on it. I then body filler and primer. This is just roughly smooth. I couldn't repair any further down. The reason I'm repairing this is part of the graphic will be in this area of the door, and I need again a decent surface for it to stick, but it won't cover this section, so I can't really prime down here and things like that. So it's going to be a balancing act. It's not perfect, but there's no way I could make it perfect because I need to fill down here in order to get it smooth up through here. Also fixed this back area, and that actually went pretty quickly, and yeah, it's come out pretty good. This has got the curve inwards here, and it's got the crown here. So, you know, one of the things that I see a lot of people when they repair these doors, they bog all the way along the bottom and they just sand them flat, but they don't. They actually kick out at the bottom. It does need a little bit more neatening up on the outside, and I did leave the welds all around the rim. I think that probably makes it look a little bit more interesting and will grab people's attention at the show because, you know, I want people to see the quality of the body overall and what we're having to do with some of the repairs. You know, I don't think this is a showcase on how to repair a door or anything like that, but it does show what you can do with very little skills. The garage looks like an absolute pigsty once again. Yeah, I'm gonna have to tidy this up. There's also a lot of painting I need to do before I can start reassembly, like the side vents and all of the front fascia and the headlight surrounds and things like that. But it is 1:37 on Saturday the 15th of October. That means that we are one day, less than one day away from Toto's in the Park. So Toto's in the Park is actually tomorrow now. Car is sitting outside looking like this. And it's a cold night, so there's plenty of dew on it as well, which is just fantastic. So yeah, I am gonna have to finish up now and go and edit this video and upload it so you guys can watch it on Saturday. And I am absolutely gonna have to slam through it today, in order to get it ready in time. Not only that, I've also got to do things like pick up the tow car, pick up the trailer and all that kind of thing. So I really only have about half a day left. So it's gonna be a push, and I would say it's highly likely that I will not be getting much sleep between now and then. But anyway, I'm sure it'll be worth it in the end. If you're in Perth, it's at Sir James Mitchell Park in South Perth. It starts at 10 till 2. If you're bringing a car, and anyone can bring a Toyota, I think it's $10 entry or something. You don't need tickets on the day or anything like that. So if you do have a Toyota you want to show off, bring it down. And keep an eye out for Doofa, because I'm not going to tell you guys what the livery looks like for this thing. Basically, when I looked at the photos of the car that I'd taken before in bare metal, at a distance it kind of looked just silver. So it's not really as attention grabbing as I would like, considering we're not gonna have this look in concourse. It needs to look interesting. So yeah, I picked up the graphics. They were printed today and I picked them up this afternoon, and I had a good look at them, and man, they are pretty awesome. It might be one of those things that you love or you hate, but either way, it will definitely grab your attention. So yeah, come down, say hi. I've got some stubby holders and stickers to give away. We don't even sell the stubby holders on the site, so if you do want one, you're gonna have to come to Toto's in the Park to get it. So yeah, that just leaves us with do all the things, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I'm gonna put the full Violet Crumble series up here, and I will put the Doofa Now series down here. So yeah, come down tomorrow. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time on the Build Room. Bye for now.